Welcome back, my dark beings, to the Dark Void, ruled by me, now 51, and today we're back to random. It's not really random reactions. It's like WTF news slash random reactions. No, WTF news actions. I have no idea. I'll figure it out. But today we're gonna be. We got like 3 videos today, 4 videos actually. It's gonna take like a bunch of hours. Probably gonna take like 1 or 2 hours to get through them all. Yeah, we got like a bunch of videos happening, and when I'm talking about that, is very idiotic. If you don't know the situation because it happened last week, Sony has decided to basically stop doing physical copies. Basically ending an era of physical copies. Which makes it all digital because they want to keep all the revenue and they want to make sure that we don't own nothing. Which I'm going to say this right now, that I'm full support of piracy. Because literally at this point piracy is like it's not stealing anymore. Piracy is no longer stealing. Because literally we don't own anything. These companies say that we don't own anything, we don't like it, then piracy is not illegal. Because this is just getting insane. The fact that this ends means that we no longer have any right. I have an entire library right now. I have an entire bucket filled with games from all my eras. I have like other consoles like from the N64 era still sitting in my closet, like somewhere around the house. And now all that's and basically. And the last and PlayStation 5 is basically the last generation is gonna have any physical copies. Well, that you're able to play. Well, I don't know, PlayStation 4 we were able to play. Either way, yeah, we gone to this point. It is literally officially gone to this effing point. It is insane how we made it to this point in time. It is insane. And Sony, by idiotic right, is stupid idiots who literally have no idea what they're doing, and now hilariously for the past week have been being hit with backlash, deserved backlash, mockery, and idiotic things because they think they know what's best for us. No, they do not. And we're going to show them that they're not right. Literally, yeah, at this point it's getting out of control. It's getting out of control, especially when now it's getting to the point where it's costing too much to play a game. And also agree to the fact that literally playing a game should not be costing us $80 freaking anymore, because since we don't have physical copies, it should be lower than that. Because physical copies take some resources, right? Take funding, right? Take resources, and so it shouldn't cost $80. But of course, they're probably going to say, "Oh, we needed to make games. Basically, we need to make it we need it because we support our employees." You mean the employees that you keep laying off every 5 seconds? Yeah, I don't see the correlation here. You're saying one thing, but you're saying a totally different thing. You keep, in fact, didn't Sony lay off so many people already? So saying that you need to pay your employees means you just want to pay yourselves the higher ups money. You both know you're only paying you only want your most amount of money. You're getting paid billions of dollars at this point. It's insane. Anyway, yeah, we're gonna be reacting to watching all these videos. I'm gonna be saying my 2 cents at the end of every video. Because, yeah, like I said, it's going to be like 2 hours to get through the ball. Let's begin. Young, yeah, take it away.
This is how you share your games on PS4.
Look at that. Man, that is an era.
Thanks.
PlayStation.
Sorry,
yeah, reminiscing.
Reminiscing on the good old days.
Yep.
When PlayStation gave a crap about.
Yep. I want to say that. Sorry about that. I have to say that right now. That if you're hearing any skips, thankfully my audio is working this time. But if it's not, then you're probably hearing some skips. I tried my best. It worked in my testing, but so far it's running smoothly. So, but if it's not right now, then I'm terribly sorry.
Consumers.
Yep.
The death of physical media.
Yep.
Let's talk about it. We were kind of heading there, but it's here. And it's coming sooner than
the videos
expected. PlayStation just announced that they're straight up just killing physical disc production. It's ending in January of 2028.
Also, let me know if you guys can hear anything.
Games releasing on PlayStation.
Because I'm trying to hide enough
and they provide
audio
bullshit excuses, but you know, it really comes down to corporate interests. So it reads right here: as consumers' preferences and the broader entertainment industry continue to shift away from physical discs to digital, physical game disc production for all new games releasing on PlayStation consoles will be discontinued starting January of 2020. Following this date, new games will be available on PlayStation Store and at retailers in digital formats only. This transition has no impact on games that already released or will be releasing prior to January of 2028 in disc format. This is a natural direction for Sony Interactive Entertainment to adapt to consumer trends as the general preference for digital media significantly outpaces physical.
Never mind on that.
This transition will enable us to align more closely with how most of our community prefers to access and play games today. So basically, fuck the rest of you.
Yeah.
We'll continue to prioritize our resources to drive innovation in how players can access games. Innovation in how players can access games. This is a regression in how players can access games. And provide choices. You're literally removing a choice as to where players prefer to purchase new games, whether that's at retailers or PlayStation Store. We remain committed to delivering a world-class gaming experience to our fans, and we thank you for your continued support. What's the point of retailers when you can just buy digitally on the PlayStation Store?
What's the point
Retailers are dead. There's no point of retailers with the death of physical media for video games.
Yeah, the retailers.
And something that
secondary
highlighted here is, quote, in case people don't know, all physical PlayStation games are manufactured by Sony. You have to go through Sony to get your game printed on a disc. Once PlayStation decides it's not making discs anymore, it's all over for physical media on their platform. Meaning that it's not just Sony deciding this for first-party PlayStation games.
Over.
All third-party games will also be digital only.
It's entirely over.
Company like, I don't know, Limited Run that makes limited versions of physical editions of games that only release digitally, they will have no avenue to pursue.
So
now, it is true that when it comes to game purchases, it has been trending more digital. Daniel Ahmad highlights here what started during the PS4, less than 10% digital at the start, has evolved into 80% of
because it's more convenient
being digital on an annual basis. But that is still a whopping 20% of the gaming population that still choose physical and see the value in physical, especially the ones done right, where all of the data for the functional version of the game is housed in the disc. Obviously, it's not going to have all of the post-day one patches and post-day one content, but at least there's some form of the game that is preserved.
Still play it.
That will be gone forever. And all this, by the way, comes in light of the most recent controversy surrounding Sony, which I talked about in my last video that I published less than 24 hours ago, titled Sony Face Mass Revolt After Nuking Users' Digital Libraries. Sony recently mass deleted digital purchases from users' libraries. Over 550 movies were just straight up stripped from libraries, despite the fact that those were purchased content. PlayStation announced this right here in this post. We talked about from September 1st, 2026. Content licensing agreements. You will no longer be able to access your previously purchased content from Studio Canal, and it will be removed from your video library. We're talking about a list that spans this much. Like all of this content
look at this.
just got deleted from people's libraries. And I talked about in that video how if it can happen to movies, you can bet your ass that it can happen to video games. And that highlights the dangers and the dystopian nature of an all-digital future.
When the next console
and guess what? Not 24 hours later, that future is here. I mean, of course, we'll have to wait until 2028 before all this comes into full effect, but that's less than 2 years away. To say that the backlash surrounding this has been vicious would be an understatement. It's only been a few hours since the release of this statement from PlayStation, and on Twitter, look at this, 20.3 million views. The ratioing of this tweet is insane, and then the comments highlight just straight up complete disdain towards this move. Does it play one of the greatest advocates for physical media and for, non-DRM experiences? Talked about how you are killing ownership, you're killing legal preservation, you're killing discoverability, you're killing publishers, you're killing developers. This is a move that might slightly improve bottom lines, but tear down every other aspect of this medium. Well done.
Everything is like falling apart.
Physical media is just such an iconic aspect to gaming, and to see its death happening live right now, right in front of our eyes, is incredibly disheartening. Here's somebody else suggesting then stop selling digital games for the same price as physical ones too. You're removing the printing, box, and shipping prices from the equation completely, so I shouldn't be paying $70 for digital games anymore. It's like, okay, reduce the price
if you're gonna
of
basically
games,
go
if you're
digital,
gonna go full digital,
fine,
and if you're gonna be basically
decrease the price.
Because now they all have expiration dates. An all-digital future means every digital media that you purchase has an expiration.
Or digital game.
You're licensing, you're renting, you're not really buying. In the quote tweets of PlayStation's official post, I mean, you can see that the backlash is vicious. Tons of engagement across numerous tweets that highlight the current realities of the Sony and PlayStation ecosystem. You're increasing PS5 prices, removing digital content from players' libraries, over 500 movies, as well as 2 years ago in 2023, a bunch of TV shows that people purchased from the PlayStation Store. Still wants to focus on live service games after a whole generation of failures with them. Closed
they still want to keep
renowned studios like Blue Point, and now they're stopping disc production in January of 2028. What a joke. And you know what also got announced at exactly the same time by PlayStation? That the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita stores would be shutting down. And they highlight right here that to ease the transition, players will still be able to download previously purchased content after the closing date for the foreseeable future. But notice the language here. You being able to download previously purchased content on these now closing down stores will not be something that will last forever. They talk about to ease the transition, meaning that this is a transitional phase towards eventually shutting down servers for this aspect of PlayStation.
Which is why I said
forever,
before,
meaning that eventually
you
will not be able to download these
with
games
the next console.
On
what's going to make them stop from shutting down PS4, PS5?
And that will be the death of those products. That ownership you had over these games does not exist. They will disappear eventually. And now we're heading towards an all-digital future where you will have no option but to go through this kind of all-digital ecosystem where eventually, maybe 10, 20 years down the line, servers will be shut down and your purchases will be worthless. And all of this was already heralded when Grand Theft Auto 6 decided that their physical editions would not have a disc in them, only download codes. There were initial beliefs that this was done to prevent leaks and that a disc version for GTA 6 would launch after the release of the game, but we're learning now, based on insider reports, that there are actually no plans whatsoever to release a disc version of GTA 6. You know, the biggest entertainment product in the world, in the history of entertainment. And worst part is that there's every indication that PlayStation is not the only one heading down this path. In fact, Jess Corden from Windows Central straight up said, don't expect Project Helix or Xbox Helix to have a disk drive either, by the way. And there have been leaks in the past surrounding Xbox that suggested that Xbox is also aiming for an all-digital future. And with PlayStation now going all in on an all-digital future, it'll kind of inspire other companies, other platform makers to go that route, especially if there's not enough financial blowback. Once one major company sets a trend and is one who starts it, it's a lot easier for other companies to be like, oh, well, this is the new normal now, so now I have permission to do the same thing. The only remaining platform that has proper physical media is now the Nintendo Switch 2. Though even then, it's a little shaky because of these game key cards that companies are going for, which is physical media that requires you to download all the data for that game key card online from the storefront. It's basically the worst aspects of physical media and digital media combined. But there are games coming out on Nintendo Switch 2 that house all of the data in them. That still does exist. And Nintendo's first-party games, at the very least, all of them so far, I believe, or like the vast majority of them, have fully been implemented into physical media that has all of the game data, where no matter what happens in the future, if you have that game card and you have a Nintendo Switch console, the
only people left with that
cartridge and play it in perpetuity. That access is in perpetuity. But I'll be honest with you, even Nintendo, I can foresee eventually down the line with maybe their next generation console going all digital. I can foresee them following this trend as well.
Them shutting down
I guess we'll see.
Switch too.
But you know, it just doesn't seem unlikely to me. This feels like where everything's headed right now when it comes to gaming. Even PC has gone all digital. You don't see computers with disk drives anymore, and you don't see anyone releasing PC versions of games on
I mean, mine is from the
rare
2016 era,
happen, it's pretty much part of like a special collector's edition, a la what Larian did with Baldur's Gate 3. But The one difference between PC gaming and console gaming is that PC gaming, at the very least, is an open platform. And so that allows people to take digital games and crack them and find methods of preservation through, quote-unquote, piracy that is now becoming a more fair system than the actual official and legal channels for preservation and for fair consumer access to the products that they purchased.
Trust me.
And PC also has platforms like GOG,
I'll get to that after
where even if a game vanishes from the GOG storefront, it never leaves your library.
That's
exactly
great.
as
GOG.
Digital ownership ought to be. This is like the best case scenario.
That is literally how you're supposed to be.
GOG basically
have that.
It's digital games like download files with no DRM that as long as you keep that file, you can just keep your game forever. Like the installation file, as long as that is safe and sound, you get access to that game forever. So even though PC does not have physical media anymore, there are some avenues where you can pursue in order to be able to preserve your digital games, whereas consoles, being closed platforms, don't have that. And the only way to ensure that for consoles is to essentially engage in hacking those consoles and be able to open those platforms up to be able to be treated like PCs. And that's the only way now where preservation can happen and where just access for consumers who purchase these digital products can happen. And then another methodology is, of course, emulation, and thank God for emulation and that being as advanced as it is, and the fact that so many people are passionate about figuring out emulation for each generation of consoles, because without emulation, so much of gaming history would be lost forever, and so much of people's purchased products would disappear from their libraries forever. But at least with emulation, there are avenues to be able to get those games back and still be able to have access to them, which, if you've purchased those games, is entirely, I think, justifiable. And the insult to injury to all of this is that this is being announced amidst a storage cost crisis that is the result of artificial intelligence hoarding all the computing components as they set out to build data centers that are incredibly expensive to build and require tons of computing components to build. And with all these DRAM companies profiting greatly from just selling their RAM in bulk and their GPUs and their SSDs in bulk to AI data centers, leaving consumer electronics out to dry, the cost of consoles and storage is higher than it's ever been. Prices, instead of depreciating, have appreciated. They've gone up in a way that we've never seen before in the history of electronics. And amidst all this, we're going all digital. Amidst all this, they're requiring us to buy more storage than ever because of just the sheer size of games in this day and age. And when it's all digital, it means that all those games and all of that data has to be stored in storage that is more expensive than ever. Like, this is where we're at right now. This is utter insanity. This is, like, in every angle possible, utterly dystopian. And then there's the question of backwards compatibility. Folks have a pretty significant collection of physical PlayStation 5
I got like a bunch
discs.
in my ear.
What's going to happen with that? Shinobi602 kind of tweeted about this, saying, so either Sony A, sells an optional PS6 disc drive, LOL, that seems unlikely, or B, somehow allows you to transfer your discs into digital on PlayStation 6, lol, lamau even. Neither of these options seem likely, especially after this recent announcement. The only option is keeping the PS5 plugged in, or these become nice coasters. This is why now more than ever it is so important to support movements like Stop Killing Games, because if the proposals of Stop Killing Games campaign becomes law, at the very least, even if everything goes fully digital for gaming, companies will be required to have end-of-life plans for their games that allow those games to be preserved.
Because if it loses, it's over.
Refunds if they're not able to offer end-of-life plans and strip games. Because
I got a lot of digital now
without their consent, decentivizing them from engaging in that avenue and motivating them to ensure that their games are preserved and kept alive in some kind of functional, playable state, so that these games do not disappear from the face of the planet. They're preserved from an artistic level, and from a consumer level, those consumers can retain full access to these games in perpetuity. That's what Stop Killing Games would ensure. And if this were law at the very least, maybe this would be something that's a little more palatable. But with no regulations in place, with companies being able to do whatever they want with people's
like it,
digital
but
purchases, just go into your library and steal shit from you, something that you wouldn't dream of when it comes to like physical media and physical products, where companies can't
like
just
repo,
come into your
man.
house and take your possessions
It's like repo
away
men
from
that
you.
come in to take your
You know,
car.
the notion
Think
is
about
that digital games should be treated exactly the same way, but because it's so convenient for companies to steal stuff from you digitally, take your digital products away from you, because it's such a non-invasive procedure where they don't even have to come into your home to do that. That's the only reason that's allowed.
How is it invasive?
Ludicrous.
I literally can't play
it. And so laws have to change. If this is where gaming is headed, if this is where media is headed, where we're just going all digital, then the laws have to change to reflect that, to ensure that consumers have some kind of safety net, and to ensure that the consumer side of things is fair and just, because right now they just ain't. So yeah, this is where we're at, folks. More and more, the future of gaming and the future of just media as a whole is looking more and more dystopian. Sony dares to talk here about innovation and player choice when they're providing less of it. All of this is a complete regression from the good old days of gaming. All of this is just the worst possible outcome when it comes to consumers' agency over the games and digital media and content that they consume. Or at the very least, that's one man's take.
I'm going to pause there. Okay, I'm going to talk about this, but this is just talk about this before we move on. But this is just insane how we've gone to this point where you can't even play a game without having the fear of it. Oh, it could be shut down the next moment you're playing it. I mean, literally, I'll tell you how bad that is, because I did play New World a bit when they had that free day, that free to play thing for the time limit. I barely started. I started, and guess what? Now this is just demonstration. I already knew it was gonna it's gonna stop playing. It's gonna stop doing the free to play. I just happened to get in the wrong time. It's that when I was playing it and I made it and I was still doing a tutorial, at a certain moment the game shut down and what happened? What's going on? Oh, did I reach the limit? Oh, come on! And I was upset. Imagine that if you're playing a goddamn game, like even if they announced it, you're playing a game, you're enjoying yourself, and the next moment it's sorry, and it just shuts down, it pauses the game, or puts you back in the main menu, or something, or has a message say, oh, sorry, this game has been shut down and you're not able to play it. Imagine that. That is literally the place we're going. Seriously, this is just insane how we've reached to this point where we need movements just to stop games from being taken away. I mean, right now I have digital copies on my outer hard drive right now, which I have an outer hard drive, so I can play them because there's like no room on the console anymore. It's like taken over by Call of Duty at this point. But literally, it is just so insane how literally we got to that point. And even then, I don't even know if I can still play them if the Sony decides to shut them down. I have physical copies, but I generally don't have the capability to set them up anywhere in my room. I do have drawers, I do have everything, but those are filled up with other stuff. There's right now I have games still lying on the floor right now. They're lying on the floor. I have a bucket filled with the Xbox 360 games, and I have PlayStation 4 games lying on the floor. I have some PS5 games, 1 or 2 or 4. Sorry, that Mom and I was saying that she's gonna turn on the fan for the bigger air conditioner, so I'm gonna be talking a little bit quieter. Because it's hot over here, so sorry about that. Hold up. But still, the fact of the matter is how we've gone to this. But I literally have games on the ground, sitting on the ground right now, just sitting there, because I literally have no room. So which is why I have no choice but to play digital, because it's more convenient. I'm able to play a bunch of them without having to search for them, and also to play them on my console. But that is literally the problem. Since literally these companies are stopping trying to go with all digital, and they can literally say, no, you don't own it anymore, all those digital copies could be gone immediately, could be disappearing, and I won't be able to play. I don't know how many of those games I'm going to be able to play anymore. That is the worst case scenario, that I will not be able to play a game anymore, because literally these companies are so stupid and greedy. So it is insane. We've gone to this point. It is so easy for these companies to just give us an offline mode, just let us to play these games, play on our own servers, but they don't, because if they do, that means we have no intention to pay for any other games in the future. That is literally how greedy they are. It is so stupid. and it pisses me the heck off. It is so stupid. But yeah, that's about it. We're gonna move on to the next video. I mean, I still have more to say, but I'll probably say more in the next video. But still, I just can't believe we're reached to this point. We have no choice but to do that. Pisses me off. All right, hold up. We're gonna move on to the next video. I'll be back. Okay. Alrighty then, we're back. Yeah, this is the second video from Young. Yeah, I would, like I said before, I will leave a link down below. But like I said, I'll leave a link down below for you guys to watch it. Also, like I said before, let me know if the audio for the games are, for these videos are low, because I want to make sure that you guys are able to hear it. I got like a comment saying that this basically the audio is a little bit low, it's like a little bit low, and I'm just talking too loud. Let me know in the comments if you guys are able to hear it. Anyway, this one video is a little bit more enjoyable because it's about Sony PlayStation face mass rebellion and vicious mockery after killing physical discs. If you don't know, there was a little bit of rebellion and a bit of a mockery against Sony because one certain pizza company decided to give the best response to this situation, which I have to say is the best, and everybody's enjoying it and enjoying the mockery of them, of the Sony. So we're gonna watch that. We're gonna see that. So let's get on with this.
As of the recording of this video, it's been about 24 hours since Sony and PlayStation announced that production of physical discs would be ending in January of 2028, and that any games released thereafter would be fully digital. Sony is straight up killing physical media, and I suspect that the rest of gaming will follow suit. And this is something that has a lot of implications. I mean, starting with the fact that Sony recently deleted a bunch of movies, over 550 movies, from purchasers' libraries. And this is not streaming. These are like purchased products that they've decided they are stripping from players' libraries because of license expiration. Just a reminder that when it comes to digital products, you own absolutely nothing. And amidst all that, they also announced recently, alongside the eradication of physical media, the shutdown of the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita stores, while they say right here that players will still be able to download previously purchased content. This is to ease the transition, indicating that there's a transition period, and eventually you will not be able to download previously purchased content. All of that digital content that you purchase will be eradicated. And amidst all this, there is a storage cost crisis going on right now. Thanks to AI.
The AI is like taking over everything.
Physical media.
Support of AI, but god dang, it's getting out of control.
Except storage is also more expensive than ever. Alongside that, there are concerns about backwards compatibility. People have huge collections of physical media that when PlayStation 6 comes around, it being an all-digital console, they won't be able to take their physical discs into the next generation. So that's also incredible.
I'm probably not even going to buy the next gen.
Alongside that, a lot of people are bringing up the fact that Sony and PlayStation will have full control over the prices of their games. Something that physical media allows is reselling and in turn buying games for cheaper. That is something that will be eradicated. For example, Metal Gear Solid Delta. If you go to Amazon right now to buy the physical media, it's $25. But if you want to buy it on the PlayStation Store, you better be ready to shell out $70.
It won't be $49.
These are going viral and millions of views and hundreds of thousands of likes. And yeah, we're going to be looking at a lot of viral tweets and posts and all of the mass rebellion that is currently erupting against Sony and PlayStation on a level that is unprecedented. I haven't seen backlash like this in a very, very long time.
They need to know.
But another example is the fact that Sony is currently charging first-party game God of War Ragnarok $70 digitally. And guess what? If you go to Walmart, it's $32. If you buy secondhand physically, it's significantly cheaper. That aspect of the gaming market completely eradicated.
Look at that.
And the thing about this direction with gaming is that it is kind of unique. While, yes, the music industry, film industry, and print industry have shifted digitally, they still offer the option of buying CDs and vinyls. They still offer the option of buying DVD, Blu-rays, so on and so forth. The print industry, they still print, paperback, or
Man,
hardback copies.
music industry's
but where the
corrupted in
video
their own
games
way, but they
industry
know
is
where the
headed
money is.
isn't. We're mainly doing digital, but physical will still be an option for those who enjoy that.
Look at that.
We will not be doing
music
physical
industry, they corrupted
at all.
in their own
And the
way.
virality of all of this
that,
cannot be understated. In
yeah,
just
they know
24
that
hours,
basically
the PlayStation Post,
has it.
signaling the end of physical media, has garnered a whopping 88.5 million views. And the replies here are garnering millions of views and tens of thousands of likes, talking about the death of ownership and the death of preservation, discoverability, and killing publishers and developers. And then we got posts like, I mean, this one right here. Stop selling
Domino's.
digital games for the same price as physical ones, also garnering incredible virality here. And you've got Domino's Pizza chiming in. We'll get to that in a bit because
we'll get to that point.
Incredibly viral. But yeah, the rebellion is full on. People telling Sony to essentially go fuck themselves, highlighting the massive library of physical media that people have purchased that, you know, they may not be able to carry on to the next generation, and just the very death of that kind of collection. And there's every indication that Xbox is set to follow soon, with Jess from Windows Central highlighting that Xbox Helix will also not likely have a disk drive, though apparently Xbox is working on a method to have a disc-to-digital feature where you can digitize a physical game collection, but that is ultimately like a Band-Aid to an issue.
Yeah, it is a Band-Aid.
In the long term, will have ramifications that
it needs to be something better than just that.
Forever lasting. This is just a patch to something that is ultimately headed towards.
It needs to be something better than that. At least let us keep our freaking
platform
things.
Right now that is still supporting physical media is the Nintendo Switch 2. Though any game released via game key cards, I mean, it might as well be as good as digital, though there is proper physical media on the Nintendo Switch 2 for many games, especially where first-party games are involved. Those games, all of that data tends to be housed in the cartridge, where many years down the line, when services shut down, as long as you have the cartridge, you can still play those games. But this feels like ultimately a transition period. It feels like in the next generation of consoles, Nintendo may very well forego physical media as well. Hard to say for sure. And PC has been all digital for a long time now, save for a select few exceptions. Though you've got platforms like GOG that are DRM free. So even if it is all digital, when you do purchase something from GOG,
some of these
you
companies
download the
that have their own
installer.
Digital things.
That installer
Sorry, that happened there.
Require an online connection and something you get to keep forever. As if it were physical
Sorry,
media, so that's a good compromise there. But you know, Steam doesn't have that. Though at the very least, PC is.
I forgot. Literally, my brain just literally went whitewashed in that moment after the ad.
PC, because of its open nature, does allow for preservation,
should try to make their own
in less official ways.
Least,
yeah, the concerns surrounding the future that PlayStation just opened.
At least, I don't know. Some of these companies that are digital,
yeah, they're extremely
should make their own
warranted.
consoles.
And the rebellion is incredibly swift and incredibly vicious. Even this video right here from back in 2013, where PlayStation dogged on Xbox because of the way they were handling physical media. And, you know, in this video where they reinforce the advantages of physical media, you're seeing comments pop up saying this is how you own yourself 13 years later. People are dogging on this video all these years after because of the sheer hypocrisy of Sony releasing a video like this and then not adhering to the very ideals that they present here. You've got people going back to tweets like this from 2013 where PlayStation is all about supporting used games and PS4 game discs, only for them to completely renege on that in 2026. So we've got comments coming in saying, shame, 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 what the fuck happened to you? Fast forward to 2026, so on and so forth. And, I mean, this is such a major topic of conversation that, of course, there's already a topic on Twitter, and the top comments are vicious and loud
the Domino's thing.
And this is easily the most talked about topic on Twitter right now. I mean, look at
even KFC got
the trend here. 1.5 million posts surrounding Sony ending physical game discs for PlayStation titles from 2028 as of the recording of this video. And among the most viral posts and among the most viral mockeries of PlayStation comes from frickin' Domino's Pizza UK, when they posted to PlayStation and said, makes about as much sense as us changing to digital pizzas.
Yeah, we're not robots yet.
Hundreds of thousands of likes. But even more viral is this post right here where they made an official statement,
I heard about this.
mock statement that reads, in response to trends in the gaming industry, as of April 1st, 2027, Domino's UK will cease production of physical pizzas and shift to production of digital pizzas only. Consumers will be able to download our full range of delicious pizza codes and, using the power of the imagination, enjoy them in an entirely virtual sense. This is garnered, 7.6 million views and hundreds of thousands of likes. But yeah, it's the excuses that Sony uses for this that are especially insulting.
Let's hear the excuse.
Them talking about driving innovation and how players can access games and provide choices.
That's not innovation.
This is a regression of innovation, and it's providing less choices for consumers, and them talking about adapting to consumer trends. And yeah, it is true that most purchases these days on video game platforms happen digitally, but there's still a significant number of people who still value physical discs, and at the very least, that should be some kind of option. The complete removal of that option is where the issue lies. Even KFC is getting in on this.
KFC.
Breaking news, KFC will stop offering its physical format starting today. Its products can only be consumed through its app in fake PNG format. Also millions of views and hundreds of thousands of likes. And you'll see across all of social media that a lot of not only like fast food companies, but a lot of companies around the globe are kind of getting in on this trend because they know that it's free marketing, and they can dog on PlayStation and
it's great
points. But I say let this be a viral trend because it might just be enough of a marketing
I want to see this on the news. Let's hope this gets on the news.
Enough of a PR liability that maybe they'll be forced to change their stance. They have done so before when backlash got harsh enough, and hopefully this will inspire that. Obviously, only time will tell. But beyond companies outside of gaming like fast food chains and many others, you've got actual entities in the gaming space like GameSir here, a company that's all about gaming peripherals, releasing a statement saying GameSir will cease production of physical copies of controllers and shift to digital controllers, also getting in on the mockery. But also you've got more serious statements from actual development studios like Eternum Game Studios, who put out the following official statement that also went viral and that got a lot of support from people who respect and value physical media. They said, in light of recent events in the industry, we at Eternum Game Studios want to send a clear message. Our support for store distributors and collectors is and always will be absolute. We cannot conceive this medium without you. The physical format is not just a disc, it is preservation, culture, and the very soul of video games. As an indie studio, the digital landscape has always been our logistical haven. However, the announcement has deeply moved us, and we refuse to stand idly by, so they promise to release all of their games physically before the 2028 deadline. But the fact that there is a deadline at all means that this is something that we cannot fight against unless Sony changes their minds. And so the only way to fight is to dog on Sony until they change their minds. To be so vocal that Sony cannot just turn a blind eye and a deaf ear. You've also got companies like GameFly, who are renters of video games and movies, who came out with this statement: we are disappointed in the news today about the future of PlayStation video games. And it's companies like GameFly and retailers in general that are most impacted.
Didn't they say their membership costs like 20 to 30
and they
bucks?
say GameFly is run by people who believe physical products still matter. It is a belief that has been at the core of our company since day one. We are collectors and gamers and cinephiles just like you. We believe in the power of physical entertainment media. It's why we're committed to renting physical media, be it games or movies, until they pry the discs from our soft, moisturized hands. And you can see this is also a tweet that's garnered a lot of support.
Yeah, but aren't you like costing people 20 to 30 bucks?
So on and so forth.
But that's just...
And then we can move on to the likes of Larian Studios. One of the developers there came out and talked about how heartbreaking the recent news is, especially because they pulled this right here. Larian released discs for PlayStation 5, Xbox, and PC that housed all of the data in them. The fact that they even went as far as doing a physical version for PC, that is actually unprecedented.
Really? Oh, that was PC? Oh my god.
Age. And yeah, they went all out because a lot of physical media, even before this announcement, was kind of worthless because of the fact that they still required like an online download in order for the discs to be functional. And with Larian, they made it so that that's not a thing. There's no DRMs. Like, you get 2 discs on PlayStation 5 so you can fully install the game on the console forevermore. Same with Xbox and with PC.
2 discs just to get it. God dang.
DRM free. And now with PlayStation removing the option of physical media outright, and with Xbox likely following soon, such a thing will no longer be possible even if developers want to do it. The option, the choice, has been completely stripped and removed. You've also got companies like Bethesda and the Elder Scrolls team dogging on PlayStation with this promotion right here for the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion remastered for the Nintendo Switch.
Is that about an ad?
I've been looking for you. Do you have it? By the 9. Excellent work. I knew I could count on you.
Yeah, exploring across Cyrodiil, you never know what physical treasures you might find, reads this tweet. And the thing about Oblivion Remastered is that it's not a game key card. All of the data for the game and all of its DLC will be housed in a game card. And that means that that physical media is proper physical media that allows access to that game for as long as you take care of your physical products, as it should be. So Bethesda's not had a lot of W's in the last few years, but this right here is in modern Bethesda terms. I have to give you this one. Bethesda W, and it's something that is also going viral. But yeah, this is where we're at right now. Sony is the butt of the joke of the entire internet.
And they need to be.
Currently, every company, every individual, every entity is taking pot shots at Sony and being vocal and expressing disdain against what Sony has done here, what Sony has kickstarted here, the floodgates that have opened to less bright.
And recently they made something worse, but that's we'll talk about that next week.
Where we, the consumers, get to have less control and less agency over our access to the products that we purchased, that we bought, not that we rented, that we bought. People are also spotlighting Hideo Kojima predicting the future yet again, because back in 2021, Hideo Kojima straight up said eventually even digital data will no longer be owned by individuals on their own initiative. Whenever there is a major change or accident in the world, in a country, in a government, in an idea, and a trend, access to it may suddenly be cut off. And that's exactly where we're headed. And this isn't some like crazy prediction. We all kind of felt this is where we were headed. But now, like, it being a reality, it being here, and now thinking about the prospect of what we'd lose if we let this future be normalized, that's why people are now getting up in arms about it. The backlash has gotten so vicious against Sony and PlayStation that they've actually taken a social media timeout, as reports push Square.com here. Sony's usually posting something every single day on not only like Twitter, but also on YouTube, uploading things, posting things. And we have seen zero activity since this July 1st post right here, highlighting the death of physical media. You can see that above that is just a pinned post from June 2026. But other than that, Sony has gone radio silent because they know that any post that they make right now, any video that they upload, anything that they publish will be met with such backlash and scrutiny that it will do more harm than good to post at this point. So they've gone radio silent. That's how badly this right here has negatively impacted them in terms of goodwill and the perception of the general public. If you are as outraged about all this as I think you should be, continue being vocal, continue dogging on Sony and PlayStation, continue mocking them, continue berating them, and continue highlighting your disdain towards one of the most anti-consumer things that a company can do, which is not just focus on digital media and at least have some physical media there, but entirely kill physical media, which is something that other mediums haven't done. Again, so like you can still get physical media for music, for films, for for paper stuff, for print. Yes, there's still some avenue of physical media, even if it's the less popular option. At least the option is there. But with gaming, they're trying to take that option entirely away, and that is not right. That is not a future you want. That
I don't want that.
And in turn,
I want to basically be able to own my game.
The lack of agency, the lack of
I may not be able
reselling
to have
ability,
copies anymore,
the lack of so many things that will get lost. If physical media gets completely eradicated from gaming, it cannot be understated. So continue to call the shit out. We cannot let this stand. In the meantime, I'd love to hear what you're...
I'm going to end that right there, and I'm going to talk about my 2 cents. The fact that Sony literally has gone radio silent is a laughable thing, because the longer they stay silent, the more it's going to keep getting bad, because the moment they post anything after that is going to get, well, probably 10 times worse, because the moment they put something, they're going to basically get hit by everything at that point. Everyone's going to be dogging them. Everyone's going to go after them. No matter what they post, they're going to be community noted to basically heck him back, because they keep saying, because they are trying not to basically get involved in this. And with the recent thing that's about to happen about our basic for inactive, inactive profiles, accounts. Now that's the discussion we're going to talk about next time. But it is insane that we've gone to this point. I am getting sick and tired of seeing on the news, gaming news stuff, every time I see that something bad happens. I need some goodness happening. But right now we're gone to the point where we can't even have games as a luxury. Is now a luxury now. The next console, I'm not even paying for that one. I'm gonna keep my PlayStation 5 because I'm not about to upgrade to almost $1,000 to basically play a goddamn game that's not even mine. I'll play my PlayStation 5 to the very end. I don't care what other game is gonna come up, but they're probably gonna be live service slop at that point. And this is my other thing is that stop buying their games. Stop. Actually, in fact, I don't want to say this, but right now I think we should all stop buying their games now. Stop supporting Marathon. Stop supporting any live service game. That's basically then trying to get more money. I mean, at this point, we're gone to the point where these are the two options we have. We got to ridicule them as much as possible, and also not buy any of the games. It is getting to that. It's gone to that point right now. So yeah, that's basically what I want to say. I have nothing else to say. That's basically it. That we need to mock them as much as possible and stop supporting any games they have that they make, because this is insane. It's absolutely insane. Now you can keep buying the games that they want to if you want to. Heck, I'm gonna wait for sales so that way they don't take all my money, because at this point I'm not about to give them the entirety, all my money just for free so they can use it. I'm gonna wait for sales. That's basically how I'm gonna get through this. Gonna basically give them. This is just insane. My brain is like frying right now. Alright, that's about it. We're gonna move on to the final video of today. And basically, maybe, I have no idea. I'm gonna check on that video. Maybe another discussion for next time. But we're gonna look at that other video. If not, this is the end of the video. Moving on. Welcome back, my dog. Wait, welcome back. No, welcome back. Yeah, for the final half of this video. I guess it wasn't the end of the video after all. Okay, so we're gonna be this is the final part of the video. We're gonna be looking at rebellion grows if the Sony PlayStation kills physical discs. And Sony accused of misleading data. So yeah, we're gonna be talking about this. We're gonna be watching this. Y'all gonna take it away. We're gonna be saying, because this is just it's ridiculous. It keeps on going, and it keeps on going, and no matter what, Sony keeps doing the most idiotic decisions known to every gaming kind right now. It is such a wonder how they're able to think like this. The fact is, it's just insane to me. But then again, they're run by greedy people that literally would rather see you basically lose everything in your library than to give you 1 cent of anything. Continue on, sorry.
All right, we're going to cover two things today. One, kind of an update to the ongoing pushback against Sony and PlayStation's recent announcement that they would be ending production on physical discs starting January of 2028, basically trying to go full digital. And then beyond that, we're going to talk about the statistic that Sony presented where around like 85% of game purchases 85%. Were digital.
Did they say 80?
And how that's a big case for why they're pushing for all digital now, but how that may not actually accurately reflect the real percentage of people who buy physical versus digital. All right, so let's get right into it. I mean, first of all, let's talk about the numbers that this post from PlayStation is doing, the actual announcement that they'd be ending.
Are they still radio silent? Somebody let me know in the comments.
And how it has garnered, I mean, almost 120 million views now in the course of 3 days. That's an insane level of interaction that I don't even think Sony was expecting. In fact, this is a developer who heard from reliable sources from several publishers and devs that Sony wasn't expecting such a hardcore backlash. And they're stupider than I thought. I mean, there is a whole movement that kickstarted called Stop Killing Games, trying to the
fact that they thought that they could get away with this is amazing.
The notion of physical media being one of the best ways to protect video games from disappearing forever or from being just stripped away from your library, despite you being someone who purchased that product. The backlash is so bad that official PlayStation social media pages have not posted anything for a few days now after this announcement. And people are even going after other Sony outlets, like Sony's own official page, not PlayStation, but Sony, They kind of teased the upcoming Spider-Man brand new day, and people are coming over there and just bashing Sony for the decision to kill physical media. They quite literally cannot escape the backlash, and for good reason.
Run.
I mean, the implication
you can run from this
physical media means that in an all-digital future, Sony can pull shit like this to video games. Recently, they deleted like over 550 movies from purchasers' libraries. All of these movies right here are gone, and that means that even if you spent money on these, there's no protection for your purchases. Unlike with physical media, where you can actually keep the product and they can't just come into your house and steal that content from you. And then beyond that, they just announced an update that they're going to be closing the PlayStation 3 and PS Vita stores, with this being a transition period before you're unable to download those previously purchased games. That time will come down the line. And then there's implications surrounding the fact that storage costs are at an all-time high, and all digital means that you have to rely on storage more than ever. There are questions about what it means for the backlog of physical media and the notion of backwards compatibility for next-generation consoles, combined with people aptly pointing out Sony's monopoly on pricing games that they'd be able to have, because there'd be no secondhand market with physical discs gone. You wouldn't get situations like these where you can purchase a game like this, the physical version, the disc version, for $25 on Amazon versus $70 digitally on PlayStation Store. These may become higher, and so the list just goes on and on. The implications are insane. And Gene Park here aptly highlights how, this basically allows companies to save on production, design, and shipping, while still charging the same thing with nothing being passed on to the consumer.
Lower the prices.
And that's the thing. This is ultimately a cost-cutting measure.
So lower the prices of games then.
Their cake and eat it too. They get to cut costs of production, but not price their games any less and pass that on to the consumers. And what's particularly unique about this circumstance is that, with music and film and print, even though digital has become the more popular medium, there are still options for physical. With music, CD and vinyls, with film, Blu-rays and the like. With print, you still get books and whatnot. But with video games, this is like an attempt to completely eradicate the option of physical media, and that's where people have a major issue. And also keep in mind things like this in PlayStation's terms of service, where if your PlayStation account is inactive for 36 months or around 3 years, and you don't respond to their notice, which gives you a 6-month-long window in addition to kind of reactivate your PlayStation account, then your PlayStation account will get closed and you will lose all of your purchases. That is actually in the terms of service. And in an all-digital future, that means you could just lose your entire PlayStation library just because maybe you took a break from gaming. Whereas that's something that doesn't happen with physical media. My N64 games don't just disappear because I haven't played N64 games for many, many years. And so, there are various forms of protest happening beyond the pushback that we're seeing, not just from individuals, but the mockery that other companies are engaging in against PlayStation, where they're just dogging on them. Like Domino's Pizza released this viral post saying that they're
I love it.
Only making digital pizzas from now on. That garnered millions upon millions of views. And
I gotta stop this video here. Everybody should go to Domino's physically to order a digital pizza alongside a physical pizza, just to smear it on Sony's face. Just say, hey, on April 1st, just to go into the store, hey, I would like to buy a large pizza, and also I would like to order a digital pizza for the same price, because it's April Fool's Day. If Domino's needs to announce it like on April 1st, that they will literally start, that's literally what, that you could order, they come in, order the large pizza for the same price, and then order a digital pizza for the same exact price. Just for the joke of it, they need to do that. Somebody tell them. Somebody go to their site and literally do that. Seriously, every company that sells food, they need to. Seriously, go into that comment and say, hey, you should do this on April 1st next year, to basically sell the food on the same price. Buy the food for the price, and then order a digital version for the same price. As a joke. These companies should just announce it. Like, as a joke, we won't actually make you pay for that, but it'd be hilarious if you actually asked that. Just for the April Fool's joke. Alright? That would be the best. That would be the best and the most hilarious thing the Sony will have to witness, because everyone's just gonna be retweeting that to Sony. It'd be hilarious.
Interactions, and beyond all of the memes and all of the just backlash and all of the people highlighting just how disgusting this move is, you've got mass cancellations of PlayStation.
I do that anyway. I'm not automatically paying.
The globe. And then beyond that, people have decided, well, I'm going to start leaning into piracy more, with news outlet Polygon highlighting that the term PS5 jailbreak has skyrocketed, with many users reportedly seeking ways to use piracy
is now
on the current PlayStation 5.
Piracy
Basically,
should be illegal, but no, not anymore.
About, quote, unquote, pirating games, when piracy feels like a more fair option than the official method.
It's the best
and,
way
you know,
now.
right here we have Polygon's report on all of this. We're even at a point now where lawmakers are starting to get involved, because the backlash is so big and the noise surrounding this whole situation is so loud. So, for example, Brazilian lawmaker Erica Hilton takes a stance against Sony's end of discs announcement, says she's forwarding a notice to Brazil's Consumer Protection Agency, says Sony needs to be investigated. So that's one report of a lawmaker getting involved. And then beyond that, the European Union is rumored to be considering plans to protect gamers' purchasing rights across Europe. Though the European Union recently did fail to pass Stop Killing Games proposals for legislation, specifically the European Commission, though the European Parliament is still fully on board.
And
are still working with Stop Killing Games to get legislation going. So maybe the European Union is an avenue where physical discs and just preservation, basically.
I'm going to say this. Now, if I ever become president, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure that a lot of things get fixed. I'm just saying that right now. If I ever do. Highly doubt it, but, hey, you never know. Imagine if I do that. People are going to be looking at this video for that. Just for historical reasons. Anyway, doesn't matter. Continue on. Sorry, I just did that chant. I just said that for no reason.
Protected. And protests are also coming in the form of people arguing in bad faith. So, for example, Daniel Friedman here talked about how DVDs rot, and talked about how the glue that holds all of it together can deteriorate over a very short period of time. But plenty of people are pointing out that that's just bullshit, because there are thousands of CDs and DVDs that individuals own that date back to early 90s that
I still have my games
have not rotted, that still function properly.
Some of the
I myself have CDs, DVDs,
some of the games, my younger sibling
in general, that
literally plays games of the Xbox era.
That still work, that are still readable. So
he's still
yes,
playing that.
Anything deteriorates over time, but not to the degree that
Granted,
some people
he has the
are
console in his
highlighting
room in his area of the
argument.
house.
Even John Lindman from Digital Foundry chimed in on this ridiculous notion, saying that the amount of misinformation out there on the topic is wild. The cause seems to be a mix of manufacturing defects and poor storage conditions when it comes to disc rot. I've also had no issues with this, despite thousands of discs dating back to the 80s. I've had far more digital purchases disappear.
Right now,
that is the irony of all of this, right? Physical discs are still available. Sure, every once in a while something gets damaged and there's a possibility of losing that media, but with digital purchases, you can just lose that shit outright, because the company decides that they cannot keep up with either the service or with licensing agreements. And then there are people arguing that, well, it doesn't affect me because I personally have not purchased physical discs and have gone full digital. And that's fine if you're someone who goes all digital. What is being argued is the removal of those, and in turn the removal of a valuable way to preserve games and to ensure that people who value preservation and also like keeping purchased products in perpetuity are able to have choices on that front. Frickin' Trevor Noah got involved with this discussion even, and this garnered millions of views and tens of thousands of likes. And he explained it very aptly. He specifically highlights the secondhand market and how that's the only way a lot of people can afford to buy new games. Importantly, though, as we saw from PlayStation this past week, if the media we buy is only digital, it can be taken away from us at a moment's notice with no recourse. Imagine that. One day your entire library of games could be deleted overnight because technically
look at that.
Referring to Sony recently deleting over 550 movies from
it is just insanity,
despite the fact that people bought those movies. So yeah, protest is still in full swing. The noise has really not died down all that much. It is still a huge topic of conversation, and that is great to see. And then beyond that, something that people are also highlighting in protest is the recent financial report surrounding digital versus physical sales and the way that data might actually be skewed. So GameSpot highlighted on May 8th, 2026 that Sony just reported a new record-breaking high figure, but it's unsurprising, especially when it comes to digital media, with Sony reporting that a record-breaking 85% of PlayStation game sales were digital in quarter 4 of its last full fiscal year. Now, what's recently been highlighted by a lot of individuals is that data doesn't really provide a full picture. And the big thing that skews this data in favor of digital and doesn't represent the physical side of things well is that the 85% of all games bought are digital argument. It has a huge skew to it because there are thousands of digital-only games that do not get a physical release. Think of the $5 to $20 indie titles or digital-only ports of older games. A more fair comparison would be digital media with a simultaneous physical release versus the physical release. Basically, this 85% figure combines not just games that release both physically and digitally, but also games that provide no physical option whatsoever, and so people are forced to purchase those titles digitally. But if those titles had physical options, the physical data would skew higher in percentage, but the choice is slowly kind of being removed. And now it's being done in full force by Sony and PlayStation through the commitment of not making physical discs anymore. This individual goes into further details, highlighting how they found that there are around 1,120 printed physical PS5 games. In comparison, you've got a whopping 7,590 games that are digital on the PlayStation Store. If you remove the free-to-play games, that figure goes down to 7,451 digital games on PlayStation Store. And so, yeah, that's a huge disparity between games that release both physically and digitally and games that release only digitally that can skew the data of, people's desire for physical media. Keep in mind that a major argument that PlayStation makes for why they're ending physical disc production in January of 2028 is that they're ultimately trying to adapt to consumer trends. Except when that consumer trend is presented in a way that is skewed and that doesn't accurately represent the consumer trend, then that's a major issue. You're setting up data surrounding demand for physical media to lose when the games that are released are more digital than physical, when there are 5.65 times more digital games than there are printed physical disc versions. When you frequently don't give people the choice of physical media and you force them to go digital, even though deep down they might be like, if there was a physical version of this, I would just buy the physical version. That does not reflect the demand of the masses accurately. It doesn't mean that, digital still isn't the leading way in which people purchase games, but there's more demand for physical than this 85% of PlayStation game sales being digital highlights. This is ultimately kind of misleading, and there's enough of a demand for physical where its complete eradication is not justified, and it's clearly highlighted by the fact that the protest surrounding the eradication of physical media has been so massive across the globe. And how misleading that there was an ad for Sony in the background. Further highlighted when you look at data shown in the infamous Insomniac leaks that happened a couple years ago, that actually did spotlight the ratio of physical to digital versions of a game sold for specific titles. And you can see right here that a lot of these games that did see a physical release, in particular first-party ones, got a lot of physical sales, some of them skewing more physical than digital. Let's see it. Boy, 77% physical, 23% digital. Oh, man. Oh, yeah, Ratchet and Clank, Rift Apart, 76% physical, 24% digital. Ghost of Tsushima, Director's Cut, 71% physical, 29% digital.
Demon's Souls,
Demon's Souls Remake, 70% physical, 30% digital. Spider-Man Miles Morales, 66% physical and 34% digital. Same for Marvel Spider-Man. Returnal, The Last of Us 2, Ghost of Tsushima, MLB The Show 21 is the only game on this list that skewed more digital than physical, with 61% digital and 39% physical. But even then, it is not anywhere close to the 85% figure that Sony spotlighted months ago. This user highlights that the only games that seem to be skewing more digital than physical are essentially live services that you play over a long period of time, so it's less convenient to switch discs with that, whereas shorter experiences like single-player games and the like campaign-driven experiences that have a beginning, middle, and end, people might be more willing to insert discs and then take them out when they're done with that game and then put that away and kind of have it preserved somewhere. Now, Daniel Ahmad makes it a point to highlight that Sony also considers any digital codes that are included in hardware bundles to be physical sales. So some of the data might be skewed, But still, it doesn't change the fact that the demand for physical media is significantly higher than just the blanket 85% of game.
It is absolutely there.
Digital on PlayStation statement that, again, is just very reductive when it comes to the actual trends of consumers. The demand for physical media is nowhere near as low as these companies are trying to make it out to be. Digital is still becoming a more popular choice, don't get me wrong, but a lot of people still choose physical media
because they want the feeling.
People still like to have
I want to
at
go
the very
reminisce.
least. Twitter user Pio here also presents more data surrounding physical versus digital. And yeah, you can see right here how many of these games skew heavily towards physical, or the split between physical and digital. The gap between those two is not anywhere near as big as Sony made it out to be, or PlayStation made it out to be a couple months ago. You can just see across the board when you get physical versus digital. And optics aren't helped by the fact that when people talk about this data on the official PlayStation subreddit, moderators are deleting the posts referencing that data. I think in part it has to do with the fact that it is leaked data.
Okay.
You know, Sony's very protective of that, but there's information that's public now. There's no point in deleting data that is already out on the internet. You don't put that genie back in the bottle. You just can't do that anymore. But the optics surrounding deleting posts that are just kind of showing raw data that was internal to Sony, sure, but is out there now, and at the time was factual and does highlight that you know, the physical versus digital data that is being presented by a lot of companies may not be entirely reflective of consumer trends, of real consumer trends. It's just not a good look. It just makes it feel like they're trying to
getting out of control
information to try to justify their move of ending physical discs, when it turns out the justification surrounding that, especially the data of physical versus digital sales, may not actually be able to justify such a move. And then another shady aspect to all of this is the timing in which they made this announcement.
What is it?
They announced that they'd be ending production for physical discs on July 1st. Funny thing is that their next earnings call is on July 31st, but it only covers up to June 30th. And so they made the announcement on July 1st because they knew that that would impact certain numbers, that people would protest, they would mass unsubscribe from PlayStation Plus and the like, but that won't be reflected in their next earnings call, in their next financial briefing, because they timed it so that whatever consequences there are to the announcement that physical disc production would be ending would not be reflected in the next earnings call, because that only covers up to June 30th, and it was the day after in which they announced that physical disc production would end. And so anything that transpires from that in terms of losses of subscribers and, you know, just any kind of financial impact that might be incurred as a result of this announcement, you know, they have some time to try to recoup that. Now, one perspective worth highlighting is this one from Daniel Ahmad, who kind of responded to individuals doing some digging about this 85% of game sales being digital data, and the way that that is not entirely accurate when you look at games that do release physical and digital rather than just digital, because again, this data combines all digital games alongside physical games that also have a digital release, or digital releases that also have a physical release. And so this is what Daniel Ahmad had to say on that front, saying, quote, "With all due respect to this guy, pointing out there are more digital-only games on PS5 versus games that have both a digital and physical release, and calling it an availability bias doesn't make much sense here. The reason there are more digital-only games than physical plus digital games is because a lot of games simply don't justify the cost of a physical release anymore." But that's more about the individual development studios and companies' ability to kind of meet the demand for physical media rather than the actual demand that the consumers have for physical media, where clearly when there is physical media, people are buying them. He continues, "The truth is the ability to release digitally has expanded the market significantly to the point there are more games releasing on console than any prior generation, and Sony now earns more from digital add-on content like DLC than it does from digital or physical full game sales. This is just where the spend is shifting and has been for years. Even if you just look at games with both a physical and digital release, the data still shows a higher digital skew, but that SKU is nowhere near as much as Sony is presenting it to be with that blanket 85% figure that isn't really
Sony just
explained.
wants people to
and
believe
only
it.
when you look deeper do you realize
They just want to make you believe it.
All digital releases where there's no choice for physical alongside the games that offer the choice between physical and digital. And then he highlights here that looking at certain games that are bundles with a digital game still count as physical sales to Sony, or UK first week sales when physical is highest and then decline in the following weeks misses the point. Yes, there is a physical market that exists, and even I've said previously I was surprised that Sony made the announcement this year because I personally think 70 million unit sales of physical PlayStation games in fiscal year 2025 shows there is enough of a market to support them for a few more years. The position that Sony is taking is that losing any diehard physical-only fan in 2028 won't have an impact on PlayStation earnings, and the data does back them up on that. Right now, given the current macroeconomic environment, Sony is focusing on players that are price insensitive in favor of digital convenience and willing to spend more than they were last year on games versus bringing new players in. A lot of this is from the perspective of corporations, and yeah, sure, from a corporate level, you can argue that, when you look at the numbers, it just makes sense to go all digital. It's more convenient.
Hey, look at the numbers. It's corporates. They just want money. More money.
There's no limits to the number of units you can ship, and you can control pricing across the board, so on and so forth. But the consumer perspective is equally important. And when the consumer perspective is being skewed by blanket numbers like 85%, that makes the interest surrounding physical media look worse than it actually is. That is a problem, though. And I get that all of this makes sense on a corporate level, but that doesn't mean that this maneuver is, ethical, or it's something that consumers should just stand by and do nothing about. Because a corporation isn't just about, what is the best way we can make the best numbers. It's also about trying to keep customers happy and having some kind of relationship with customers and having some kind of moral upstanding ideal about what you're doing as a company and a major player in an industry and with a medium and an artistic medium that is beloved. And this just is such a detriment, even if it makes corporate sense. It ultimately is such a detriment to the medium of video games and notions of preservation and just the very aspect of ownership that it still deserves to be called out, regardless of why it makes sense on a corporate level. Daniel Ahmad then says, at the end of the day, there is no physical gamer majority. That's all well and good. A lot of purchases do happen digitally. Maybe even most purchases happen digitally. But again, the presence of people who still want physical media is a lot higher than what Sony is making it out to be. Again, that's
they just want to show the
not to say people shouldn't
stuff.
ask for physical games to return, but that skewing the data to make physical look bigger than it is just won't work as an argument. I mean, I would argue that Sony skewing data to make physical look smaller than it actually is won't work as an argument either. Yeah. Again, I'm not saying that digital is lesser than physical when it comes to sales. I know digital is dominant right now.
Yeah, it's the
All
best
I'm saying
way.
is physical isn't as small of an audience as PlayStation wants to make it out to be. They're trying to act like, there's no point of physical anymore. Nobody wants physical, or very few do. But, enough people still want it that it's worth keeping that medium alive, on top of the ethical reasons to do so. Again, when it comes to preservation, ownership, so on and so forth. Daniel Ahmad does highlight that is kind of the core argument ultimately, saying that the real arguments need to be around ownership, resale, preservation, and consumer rights, regardless of whether it's a physical game or a digital game. I do agree with this. Ultimately, this is what it's all about. You have significantly more rights for physical games than digital games at this point, and that's something that players and regulators should be pointing out and addressing. I do agree that ultimately, this is what it comes down to. People will be able to swallow the disappearance of physical discs more if they genuinely felt a sense of ownership over digital media. If everything functions like GOG, right? But it doesn't. And the fact that there is a possibility that your digital purchases, your digital library, one day can just disappear because the company can just do that because
but Sony says no.
Service or because you don't. Licensing agreements, bullshit, whatever.
We say you don't want it.
That's what makes
we say you shouldn't have it.
Physical discs. So
because we say so, and we own everything.
It's what makes it so scary and so dystopian. And then on top of the fact that obviously people have a fondness for just buying a box with a disc or cartridge in it, there's something about just having the physical thing itself that is a good feeling. But I'd be willing to skew digital if I could find a way to genuinely preserve those digital game files
put them on a
and
hard drive.
actually feel like I have agency over my ability to access them in perpetuity.
Hard drive on
but
mine.
the fact that that's not a factor right now, that's what Stop Killing Games is all about.
And the games are on, don't let it right there.
Proposals go through his legislation across the globe. I can swallow all of this a little more easily. It's a pill that I can swallow better. But even then, I would miss physical discs. But at the very least, if digital consumer rights kind of align with the consumer rights that you have for physical objects that you purchase for physical media, then at least we're somewhere where the more ethical concerns surrounding going all digital, at least that gets addressed. And then it becomes about, preference of like having something physical in hand and the feeling and the, kind of the joy that brings. But right now there is an ethical quandary surrounding going all digital, the dystopian future that awaits if proper legislations aren't enacted. And because legislations are so slow when it comes to addressing consumers' concerns surrounding an all digital future,
don't forget old.
Preserving and protecting physical discs is the best way to preserve ownership, preservation, resale, and agency over access to the media that we buy. But ultimately, this is all just one man's take. At the end of the day, I don't think
I'm going to end it right there. All right, yeah, that's basically about it. This is a long video. But yeah, I have to say, this entire situation with Sony is such an idiotic thing that the fact that they think that they can get away with this without any backlash is such an insanity. And now they're hiding still, as far as I know from the moment of this video, is such an idiotic move. Well, it's such a hilarious move, sorry, that when they do come back, people are just going to go dogpile on them again and at that point, they may start banning people accounts, like we will take law or something. They're just going to start saying for harassment or something, try to defend themselves or something. I have no idea. Anyway, yeah, Sony is completely idiotic. They are such liars, and they just only want to do one thing: make money and not give an F about the rest of us, huh? No, you own nothing and you will like it because we say so. It is just stupid insanity. But yeah, that's about it. Also, once again, I have to reiterate, every food company, and also anyone watching this video, go tell the food companies, hey, on April 1st next year, that they should announce that we are going to be selling digital copies on this day. Come into the store, buy your any priced food item, combo, or whatever, and we will give you sorry, and also and you pay for that, and you will get and we will upcharge you a bonus for a digital version of the exact same one for the same price, just as a joke. It would be just freaking hilarious. It would be just a joke at that point, just at Sony, because it would be hilarious for every fast food industry to do that. Hey, you get a combo or a pizza or whatever for the price, and we'll charge you the exact same price for a digital copy, for a digital version of it, just for the jokes. That would be hilarious against Sony. It would be freaking hilarious. It would be the most hilarious thing ever. But yeah, that's about it. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know in the comments what you think about this whole situation, because it is such an insane thing, idiotic move from Sony, that it pisses me off to no end. Pisses me off. Let me know in the comments about this situation. Let me know if I missed anything. Let me know if there's any other information that has been missing from all this. And like I said before, I will leave links to all the videos down below for you to go watch. But for right now, hope you enjoyed today's video. Comment, subscribe down below if you enjoyed it. Press the black bell button to be notified. Like and share the video to help support the channel and all the situation. Don't forget, restricted mode, check, because if it's on, it removes my videos from your feed. And that's about it. And for right now, my dark minions dismissed.